these situations and these relationships, a lot of us will look at that to say, wow, why does that always happen to me? Can never get ahead? And it's all about your energy and your perception on what's happening to you. We like to change it to this is happening for me instead of to me, because most of us want to point the fingers and blame.
Welcome to the Life in Paradise podcast, the show about creating a life you never need a vacation from. You'll gain inspiration from those who have done it before as we share experiences, strategies, and offer practical steps you can take to live your dream life in paradise. With your host, attorney turned alchemist, Dawn Fleming.
Today I'm here with Marina Valentina George, and I'm super excited to have a conversation with her. She's an emotional release facilitator. And what she does is helps people find their power in pain and heal the heart. And I can't think of a better topic to kick off our fourth quarter topic on relationships and community. As I was speaking with Marina before we turned on the recording, it is our relationship with ourselves that is going to make a difference in how good our relationships are with other people. So with no further ado, let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining me today, Marina. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure being here, Dawn. Thank you for having me.
Well, what I'd like to start off with is kind of just what we're talking about. If you can maybe talk a little bit about how important our relationship with ourselves is when we try to make relationships with others, to have good relationships with others. And also, I know that's going to bring in your background and how you were able to overcome the challenges that you faced and have a good relationship with the self.
Absolutely. Thank you. So for me, as we said, it all starts with self. Generally, for most of us, we have a significant event that has happened to us as a child with either a parent or, a loved one, a teacher. And sometimes it doesn't have to be this big, huge, monumental moment. It could be subtle things that we don't even realize impact us. But what that does is it shapes us at that time in our life. And it starts to form what we call these core negative beliefs. So for me, my dad died when I was 7 years old. So what's the first core negative belief that would have been, created out of that situation is he abandoned me. I'm abandoned. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be loved. All of these types of things. So I always try to connect with that original story because that is how these relationships seem to unfold. We start to notice patterns and we start to notice how and who we're attracting into our lives. How we're doing it is through what we're believing about ourselves unconsciously, and who are the people that are bringing up those wounds that we start to feel at such a young age. So there's many examples that I'd be happy to share today about myself, my clients. I tend to connect with people who have similar situations and patterns. I find that the universe always brings us that when we decide how we want to shine our light in this world. And it's so incredible how that unfolds for many of us, because once we step out and start sharing our story, then we start to attract and be able to serve people from that place. And so we're always the expert because we've gone through it. And so a lot of entrepreneurs get, in the beginning get shy or starting their business. But I always say, I promise you'll only get what you can understand and relate to. So a bit about what I offer is it's called Radical Forgiveness, is one of the many tools that I offer. And it does address our core negative beliefs. So essentially, when I work with clients, they come to me with either a relationship or a situation that they're struggling with. And then we start off where everyone starts off on that forgiveness journey. So we start with our victim story. And so they can come as they are. If they need to swear, cry, yell, whatever that is, they can talk about the frustration that they're experiencing in the moment with that relationship or situation. And I'm not there to judge. I'm just there to hold the space to allow them the freedom to express what they're feeling inside. And that alone is super powerful. So once we go through that, then we start feeling the feelings that are connected with that. We start bringing that up and really, connecting with those and saying, oh, wow, that makes me sad or mad. And then we start going into the process of, that's kind of part of traditional forgiveness, but then we start to move into what we call radical forgiveness. And I can share a little bit more about that throughout our conversation.
Yeah, I want to hold on to that thought for just a second.
Yeah,
What I
sure.
what I want you to talk a little bit, and you mentioned you had some stories, but what happens when we don't go through that process, that forgiveness? And I imagine that leads to sabotage.
Absolutely.
Do you have any examples, or can you speak to that a
Yeah,
little bit before
for
we
sure.
move on to the good part?
Of course, of course. No, we want to talk about, where a lot of us have been. Absolutely. So I like to call that coming from that victim perspective. So if we're in that victim mentality saying, you did this to me, you did that to me, then we're going to continue to attract that. And so we are in that self-sabotage. So we will create these situations and these relationships. A lot of us will look at that to say, wow, why does that always happen to me? Can never get ahead? And it's all about your energy and your perception on what's happening to you. We like to change it to, this is happening for me instead of to me, because most of us want to point the fingers and blame. But when you do that, it's just going to continue to show up in your life, and you're going to keep going through these frustrating moments and situations and relationships that are just going to say, okay, that's how you feel, I'm going to right back to you.
So yeah, we know that playing the victim, what I always say is that we give away our power when we say,
Absolutely.
Oh, this person did this to me, or they made me feel, right? No one can make us feel a certain way, right? We choose how we feel based on our thoughts.
Absolutely. That is 100% correct. And so once we start looking at it from that perspective, then we can catch ourselves a bit quicker, and we're not in it as long, and we're looking at that situation. It just creates this sense of freedom, because as long as we keep doing that self-sabotage and blaming the other people, it's just going to set us up for failure. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to create amazing things. And so generally, in my experience, most people get to a breaking point where they just can't continue on that way. They don't know what to do. They don't have the tools per se, but they know what they're doing and how they're living just isn't working, and they're ready to take that next step. But sometimes it takes a while. Like for me, it took probably 35 years. Like it was a very long process. And so I had to keep learning it over and over and over again until one day I just had enough, and I had a complete breakdown. I literally was cutting a vegetable and I cut my finger, and I connected with that pain, and I just surrendered and said, what is going on? I can't do this another second. I need you to show me a different way of being. And then all of a sudden, these synchronicities started happening. Radical forgiveness came into my life. Coaches came into my life. New connections came into my life. And that began that journey for me.
That moment of decision, right? And you just say
Yes.
that something's got to change. And I think that's true. And I'm reminded actually in my book, Claim Your Dream Life, I tell the story about, you talk about patterns. When I was growing up, I was probably still in high school, maybe it was early college. And for whatever reason, I love my dad dearly, but for some reason, he always liked to pick verbal fights with me. He'd like take a position and I would argue with him. And I don't know where along the line, I just like the light bulb moment came on, and I just said, it takes two to tango, right? It is a dance. And
Yes,
if
it
I
is.
stop participating in that, we can't argue. And so I came up with this strategy, and it actually broke the pattern, but I just decided I was going to agree with whatever he said. I was just flat out not going to argue with him. Drove him crazy at first. Like he would really try to egg me on and pick a fight. And I just, okay, Dad, whatever you say, that's awesome, and he stopped. Eventually he stopped because that dance that I had changed the dance steps. And
Power.
Yeah, it was kind of claiming that power, but instead of, well, that he's saying something that goes against my beliefs, like just let it go, right? Like watch it like a cloud.
I love that. And it's so funny because we do have a stage in radical forgiveness, a step that talks about doing that dance, that you guys are doing this dance together to learn and grow for your soul's evolution. So I
Oh,
love
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, I always have that visual in my mind. So that's really beautiful that you shared that particular thing that you've created for yourself. Because I think that once we get to that point, it doesn't matter if you're doing radical forgiveness, Dawn's method, Dawn's system, like whatever it is, it's a similar tool that we're using. It can have different names and different ways of doing it, but we're doing essentially the same work, right? And so
Mhm.
we all can really relate to each other if you've gone through this process and you really understand what it takes to do that, and it is so freeing. But for those that are still suffering with that, and they're probably at that crossroads and they're not sure what to do, just really having that awareness and saying, wow, uh, I've been just like, I've been feeling this because of this individual or this situation, but yeah, that's not going to cut it anymore. I need to do something different. I need to change. So just having that awareness, knowing that it's not working, you want to make a change and making that decision, as you said. And then I really do feel surrender is a really big part, because we don't always need to know how it's going to happen. We just need to know that we're willing to hand it over to the universe, participate in that, the next step and the next stage, and doing it in baby steps, right? It doesn't all just happen in one moment. And so just knowing that you're ready, that is the biggest piece in this healing and in this process to really break those patterns.
Yeah, which was kind of leads to the next subject, which is that healing process. Can you walk through? And I'm curious. Are there different pathways for different people, or is it kind of like, I'm thinking the stages of grief, right? I mean, we know like there's these
Yes.
4 stages of grief. Is the healing process sort of like that, or is it really different for everybody?
Yeah. So for me personally, I generally work with the tool of radical forgiveness, but I also utilize breath work. And so people can come to me from either way because they can support each other depending on how you want to start. So for some people, it's not as easy to communicate and to share. So they need to maybe do the breath work session, which I'll explain both in a moment. But they might need to do the breath work session to kind of crack open and say, wow, I didn't know how much I was holding on to after all these years, versus somebody who just needs to talk and share and they want to go through that process. And they're kind of analyzing it a little bit more. And so then we need to get them to have the breath work after the process, because that will get them into their bodies and really connecting and releasing those emotions. But essentially, the radical forgiveness process is it's a really beautiful tool, because it's a simplified 20-step process that I guide you through. And as I mentioned, it starts with traditional forgiveness, but as we start to go through the process, it's in stage 3 where things start to shift. We start to look at it from that different perspective from traditional forgiveness, because how many of us have tried to just forgive somebody, but we can't get it out of our mind? Like, I can forgive them, but I know what they did was wrong, right? And so we don't always get to that full stage of freedom and forgiveness with that approach. So with radical forgiveness, what we're doing is we're looking at them, thanking them for having that dance with us, being our teachers, and what we've learned about ourselves through the process. So it's a really beautiful, simplified step. And again, I'm here to just hold the space, support individuals to share, giving them new concepts, and then they can work through it. And it really shifts the energy. Whereas the breath work is more of a guided meditation where you're not speaking. I'm just guiding you through a breathing process. And then we do a little bit of forgiveness work in terms of a couple of other tools that I like to use. And you really connect with the music. It's a whole journey and experience. You have an eye mask, you're in your own private journey, and it's incredible the types of sensations, memories, emotions that just start coming up during that session. It's such a powerful, unique experience. It's really hard to put it into words. So I always recommend that people just try it once and just be open to it. And you will be amazed at the results that you'll get just after one session. So those are some of the processes that I work with. And yes, like we have radical self-forgiveness, which talks more about guilt and shame, right? A lot of the things that we attract is because of the guilt and shame. So it's similar. It's another worksheet. We call it a worksheet that we work through. And we're just, connecting the dots on how things transpired, where it stems from, and then looking at it from that new perspective.
Is it fair to say it's almost like on both accounts, right? For whether it's others or whether it's ourselves, almost like an emotional detox.
100%. Absolutely. Because our emotions, whether we realize it or not, from way back, 40 years ago, or from 4 years ago, or from 4 days ago, they get stuck in the body on the cellular level. And we can, talking about it can help, connecting with it can help, but these tools really allow them to come up to be healed, because we can't move through if we don't connect with those feelings and emotions. And I do find a lot of people, particularly in the spiritual community, they're all love and light and everything's positive and beautiful. And what we call it, and that's amazing. And yes, mindset is key and we want to have positive energy. But it is called a spiritual bypass if we're not really getting real and raw and connecting with those stored emotions and feelings. So it's definitely an emotional detox. And what you'll start to notice is different things, like your skin might start to get better. You may start to lose weight. Like for me, I still have some weight on because I've had such dense, deep wounds that I've done a lot of the emotional and spiritual work. And my body, I'm in that body phase. I feel this next year is I want to go deeper with incorporating some more tools that connect even deeper with the body. So you really start to connect the body, mind, and spirit a lot more when you do, bring this up and address this and connect with this, because the emotions and emotional detox is really key in the healing process.
Yeah. And, in the work that I do, I really try to educate people about how much we are governed by our subconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter. We can have like the best, dreams and goals and plans and all that. But if there's something that is not consistent at the subconscious level, it's not going to work. Almost going back to what we're talking about with sabotaging relationships, for example, you really end up sabotaging your future because you're not in alignment with what your conscious mind says it wants versus what's really going on the subconscious level.
100%. And what we call radical forgiveness is a spiritual intelligence that it just immediately starts to shift the energy unconsciously, without us really realizing it. But again, there's so many other beautiful tools like hypnosis and timeline therapy and things like that I also utilize, that I don't teach, but I also utilize for the subconscious beliefs, because you're so bang on with that. It's you can get so far with the conscious stuff, but you really have to address that unconscious, because it is, we don't even realize, like we might know we have this type of, wound or thing that we want to work through. And I've done so much work, and why isn't that healing? And when you get to that place, that's when I do recommend diving into some of the unconscious and subconscious healing tools for sure.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a moment.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastelitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
I'm so happy to have you with me for the Life in Paradise podcast. I love our listeners and fans, and we'd love to show our appreciation for you supporting the show. So please head over to lifeinparadisepodcast.com, where you can find free resources mentioned in this show, and also register for our gifts, prizes, and swag. I'd also love to hear from you, so there's a place on that page to submit your questions, comments, and requests, so I can serve you better. And if I answer your question on the show, we'll send you a free gift.
Yeah, which kind of leads to the next point is I'd love for you to talk about a little bit more about these strategies for building healthy relationships with, of course, yourself. We've been talking about that, but with others, if maybe you have attracted things or people into your life because of these patterns and not being able to change them. How is there when you're just starting out, especially with a fresh slate, like how do you have the skills or strategies to be able to make sure that you're attracting really what you want?
So I would say to, really start to look at the relationships that you have, notice that pattern we talked about, and just kind of keep, okay, that's happening. What did I do when that happens? Like, I always look at myself. Okay, what is that triggering within me? What is that? And so connecting and trying your best to connect with your core negative beliefs. So just realizing what that's bringing up. You feel less than. I would really recommend trying to figure out a way to connect with what that is for you. And that's what I do with the process with my clients. When we address the core negative beliefs, what I do then is support them in turning those into positive affirmations. So then when we address it, okay, I'm unworthy. So now I'm going to start saying affirmations, looking in the mirror at myself for the next 21 days. So I'm going to look in the mirror and say, I am worthy 3 times a day for the next 21 days. And so those positive affirmations work on that subconscious level. They work on the conscious level. And it's so interesting each and every time how things start to shift. And then you'll identify another one and then just continue to build on that. You'll start to slowly attract less and less of those types of situations, or you'll be in it. I like to say you'll be in it for shorter periods of time. We are human. We're on this earth. We're going to have moments. But when you start to have that awareness and you start to utilize the tools and do this for yourself, when you're in a moment, like a toxic moment at the corporate environment or something, you can walk away and go outside and ground for 5 minutes, walk away, take a breath from that, your partner, whoever it is that's triggering you, and just, look at self. And it's not to look at self to beat us up or make us feel even worse about ourselves. It's to just say, oh, look at that poor inner child who suffered from that and was still feeling that even at this stage of life in this situation. So I find that awareness and the affirmations and just continuing to take moments for yourself in that chaos, that really is a very simplified, gentle way of supporting you as you're going through these relationships.
Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned the 21 days, because that is definitely part of it, right? The habits create the new patterns. So,
Yes.
But it doesn't happen overnight. It does take practice. It does take working with both the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And if you've done that work, like you're suggesting, then hopefully, like you say, you stay in it shorter because maybe you recognize a pattern and you go, oh, no, I've seen this movie before, right? Sort of something like that.
Yes. Exactly. And then you'll do that, and then you'll feel good about that. And then again, you'll move on to another belief, but you might find a new tool. And it's so interesting because the universe always supports you. When you say, I've surrendered, I've made the decision, I'm ready, then you start with these little baby steps and these small tools. Then something else will come your way and say, wow, that's exactly how I'm feeling right at this moment. I want to do some of that as well. And you'll just continue to grow and evolve on this healing journey. and you'll be super supported. And it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's really magical how it unfolds. I've seen it each and every time with so many people. And sometimes you'll notice and sometimes you won't. And that's okay too. But just, for me, it's all about trusting the process. And I just keep moving forward. If I get an intuitive nudge, I take that inspired action. Like, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but it just creates this beautiful way of living that is so much gentler and so freeing. And you're just not in that victim mentality very much anymore. And it just feels, and it's incredible, the quality of your life and the things, how they start to shift for you and the people you start attracting. It's a really beautiful thing.
It's sort of interesting. What I thought of when you were talking about that is, it's almost like there's opposite ends of the spectrum, right? You've got the victim mode, and that's when you give away your power. But then you can't just assume that, oh, okay, I get my power back and now I'm in control of everything, right? Because the world doesn't work that way.
Totally.
So trying to find that space where you're allowing yourself to be led, right? Sort of that partnership with the divine, to say, okay, I am going to surrender complete control. You still want to have, right? You still want to kind of try to steer the ship a little bit. But if there are periods of time in your life where, like, okay, I think I've lost control of the wheel here, having the courage and the confidence to just say, you know what, I think I just need to be led right now. So I'm not going to really focus on, defining everything perfectly, whether it's a relationship or career or life or whatever. And just like we were actually talking about before, just sort of sitting with things for a little.
Yes. And I've been in that observation sitting hermit mode, I like to call it, for the summer this year. It was interesting because last year it was go, go, go and changing all these things. And I've just been in that, and it's actually leading me to some really beautiful places. So, really embrace that when that comes up, because there are going to be ebbs and flows. And as I said, we're in this school called life, and it is never going to be perfect. We want to, keep our humbleness as well. Like, we're never going to arrive. We're never all going to be completely healed. That's not what this journey is about. When we get somewhere else, maybe that is part of that, but we can get to a really great place. And just following those breadcrumbs, taking those baby steps, and just taking those pauses when needed, it really can lead us to beautiful places. And there will be times when things come up, but I don't know, in my experience, they just haven't been as extreme to date, I'm knocking on wood, as they have been earlier in my life. And it's just, I don't know, it's very humbling, and I just love it because I love to share that and my experience with other people, because I know that it's available to all of us.
Well, and that's important, right? Because when people come to you, obviously they're in some distress. That's why they come to you. So to be sort of that, eye of the hurricane, or that calm harbor, that people can allow, you can allow them to hold that space, and be able to do the work that they need to do.
For sure, and not diminishing where they're at and what they're feeling, and just, allowing them to understand I've been there too, and so have many others. So it feels like you are alone when you're going through that, and nobody else.
Amen, sister. I can attest to that.
So I think that's, we're going to talk about that shortly, but that's where the community comes in.
Well, let's dive in. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah. So in the beginning of my business, I was doing mainly one-on-ones. And then eventually I started to do workshops in person. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So then I switched things to an online environment. And I had a Facebook community for my paid clients. And some were into social media, some weren't. But I did notice we have a monthly gathering, and every time we got together, it was just so powerful and so needed. And it just allowed people to feel loved, seen, and supported. And so I think it was in the spring, late spring this year, I said, you know what? I am just, I need the people that feel like they're alone, that we just spoke about, because we all have those moments. to understand and to know they're not alone. And there's many of us feeling this, particularly in this transitional time. And that I just opened up my community to whoever wanted to be a part of that, because I just felt the need that people can just show up as they want to. They can be vocal, they can be behind the scenes, they can watch it, but just knowing that there's a safe space for them to go to express themselves fully, completely, authentically, without judgment, whenever they need to, or message me privately, whatever that is for them. I just know, for me, just knowing that I'm supported, whether I take somebody up on that or not, it doesn't matter, but just knowing I'm supported is such a huge piece of the puzzle. It just gives me a safety net, a security. It allows me to be vulnerable, to release all of that. And so I was really compelled to do that. And I'm just, with my observation mode that I'm in right now, I'm just kind of brainstorming different ideas and ways to bring people together, because I think with these past 3.5 years or so, we need to get back to in-person gatherings. And so I'm really passionate about retreats. I've done retreats over the years, and I'm looking at really creative ways to do that. I've primarily worked with women. I do support male clients as well, but I'd love to do a retreat with men and women, with myself and another male facilitator. But I just know that when you're around like-minded people, or people who have gone through similar situations, like for me, I seem to attract a lot of people who have gone through narcissistic relationships, because I did. So that pattern. And so it's just a beautiful thing when you can speak the language and somebody understands you, and you can just show up as you are. And so I'm just so passionate about being with like-minded people. And I know how transformation can really happen when you have that container.
Yeah. Amen. I'm reminded of studies done on loneliness, right? And they've said, you want to increase your longevity, increase your happiness, join a group. It's more powerful than quitting smoking or losing weight, even in terms of the positive impact that can happen in your life. So
Absolutely.
I'll definitely agree with that. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I always like to end with this question, and that is there anything I didn't ask you that you would like to share before we close out?
No, I just wanted to give a couple of small tips for people who might be searching for a community, because I know it can be overwhelming and intimidating. And so for me, I'm a super resourceful person. I'm not shy. I'm quite extroverted. So it's not the case for a lot of people. So I just want to give a few tips on looking for community, right? So
Perfect.
There's social media outlets, of course. So my tip is to look for keywords, things that you're interested in, things you relate to, doing Google searches, looking for retreats or coaches or different types of entrepreneurs or books that have similar topics. It doesn't mean you have to attend or go to those, but you'd be surprised when you go across those websites or Facebook pages, how many sign-up pages and free communities and all of that are available and out there. And don't be shy when you see posts or questions. Yes, it's to create engagement, but from my perspective, when I'm doing that, it's because I genuinely have the intention of connecting with others. And I truly care and want to understand where you're at, what you need, so I can support you in that. And so don't be shy, put a comment out, or if you see someone make a comment, reach out to them, send them a message. Like, you might be pleasantly surprised. So I'm, looking at eventually in the future, living in a like-minded community. So there's a lot of those forming as well, in person in various places, whatever you're passionate about, healthy eating, off the grid, whatever your topic is, keep just looking for those opportunities and asking the universe to show them to you, because you would be pleasantly surprised. There's a group for everything. Okay. So
Absolutely.
You're all going to be supported, and you will be surprised at what you will come across. So
making those connections. No, I think that's great. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful tip. And then I understand you also have a free gift.
Yes, I've offered a daily meditation. It's just 5 or 6 minutes. just to connect. So this particular one, we're connecting with Mother Mary, and you don't have to be religious. She's just a figure that's here to support you. And it's just a great little daily practice to do if you're struggling in a situation or a relationship, and you just need to feel supported and energetically connect with that beautiful divine energy to support you as you're navigating that. So I would love for all of you to take a listen if that resonates with you. And, feel free to reach out and contact me if there's anything else that I can support with.
Perfect. I'll put a link in the show notes to that, as well as how folks can connect with you, because I think the work that you're doing is so, so important. So thank you so much for being with me today, Marina. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. It's an honor to be here and connect with you and your community. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Life in Paradise podcast. Did you love this episode? If so, we'd love for you to follow, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We invite you to tune in every week for more inspired insights and wisdom to create your Somebody Pinch Me reality. And until next time, dream big and act on it daily.